All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to try and untangle this really complex web connecting Donald Trump's inner circle to the infamous Jeffrey Epstein files. And believe me, the story kicks off somewhere you would absolutely never expect. So let's just dive right in with what seems like a totally bizarre question from our source material. Why on earth was this particular guy appointed Secretary of the Navy? Now, yeah, it's a civilian role, but the person chosen for the job was, well, let's just say he was a pretty strange choice. You see, the source really highlights just how different Donald Trump's pick, a guy named John Phelan, was from your typical appointee. I mean, we're talking no military experience, no known interest in the Navy whatsoever. His whole world was finance and, get this, high-end art collecting. So what kind of art are we even talking about here? Well, when the art world tried to pin down Phelan's tastes, this is the quote they landed on from a former Sotheby's exec. Yeah, let's just say his collection probably didn't feature a lot of paintings of famous naval battles. And it wasn't just the art. The source also points to some, let's call them, unique design choices in one of Phelan's homes. Like, for instance, at his massive mansion in Aspen, he had the entire living room floor covered in mirrors. The entire floor. And how did the family themselves talk about this feature? Well, Phelan's wife is quoted explaining the reactions they'd get at parties. You know, when guests would finally realize what the floor was reflecting. Both, as she put it, naughty and nice. Okay, so fast forward to August 2024. This same private home, the one with the mirrored floor, becomes the venue for a huge, high-dollar fundraiser for Donald Trump's campaign. And this is where another big name gets pulled into the story. To get to that fundraiser, Trump flew on a private jet that had, at one point, belonged to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the campaign at the time, they just called it a coincidence. So, after the election, things get even more interesting. Congress basically forces the release of these government files on Epstein. And buried inside those files was a pretty major revelation. And bam, there it was. According to the source, the name of Trump's pick for Navy Secretary, John Phelan, showed up right there in the flight manifests of Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. So this table gives you a snapshot of who was on at least one of these big transatlantic flights. You've got Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex offender. You've got John Phelan, Trump's Navy Secretary. And you've got Jean-Luc Brunel, a model scout who was later accused of providing girls to Epstein. But look at that, all those redactions. And that, of course, brings up a whole new question. Right, so why were those other names blacked out? What was the reason for that? Let's take a look at how members of Congress reacted when they finally got to see the documents without all those black bars. Congressman Jamie Raskin, after he got a look at the files, was clearly frustrated. He said he saw a whole bunch of redactions that just seemed suspicious and baffling. You know, the rules are supposed to be there to protect victims, not to save people from political embarrassment, and he felt that wasn't happening here. So who else's name was blocked out? Well, according to Raskin, the former president's name, Donald Trump's name, was redacted in a number of different places, and Raskin said he couldn't see any legitimate reason for it. But here's the thing, John Phelan wasn't the only person in Trump's orbit mentioned in these files. The source reports that the connections actually run much, much deeper. The source points to several other major figures whose names allegedly pop up. Like Raskin said, Donald Trump's name is reportedly all over the files. Then there's Howard Lutnick, Trump's pick for Commerce Secretary, who apparently tried to negotiate a trip to Epstein's private island. And the documents also reportedly mention top GOP donor Elon Musk, who allegedly tried to get an invitation from Epstein himself. So you've got this whole web of social and political connections, and it really starts to raise questions about power and influence, right? To kind of drive this point home, the source uses one last really telling story that shows a whole other side of this dynamic. Okay, so this story is about the chairman of Paul Weiss, which is a super elite New York law firm. The source says that after Trump threatened these kinds of firms, the chairman, Brad Karp, basically rushed to the White House. And get this, their meeting reportedly starts with a prolonged discussion of golf and ends with the law firm promising to provide free legal services to Trump's projects. And just how much was that promise worth? The source reports it was a staggering $40 million. $40 million in donated legal work. So what does this all add up to? You got this bizarre naval appointment, mirrored floors, private jets, blacked out files, and then this $40 million legal deal. The source basically lays out this tangled network where it seems like political appointments, personal relationships, and just immense financial power are all intersecting. It really paints a picture of a world where influence is the ultimate currency. And it leaves us asking, what does that really mean for the systems they all control?